Hey guys, and welcome to my UFC 194 prediction video. This is a great way to sort of end the year, the calendar year in the UFC. We've got another event after this, the San Jose versus Cerrone, and a really good card at the beginning of the year as well with Robbie Lawler and Carlos Condit. But this for me on paper is one of the greatest events of all time. On paper anyway, because of the styles, the importance of the fights as well. In the division. So very intriguing, and I can't wait. I just literally can't wait. I'm so hyped up, like a kid at Christmas. And so I'm going to really just jump into these predictions now. Some of these fights I've found it really hard to even really pick winners because there are quite a few of them are 50-50 fights. It's really hard to say for sure who will win. Starting off in the featherweight division, Max Holloway versus Jeremy Stephens. I mean, Max Holloway, since he lost against Conor McGregor, the last time I looked at his age, he was 22, and now he's 24. It's crazy. So, he would have just turned 24 on December the 4th. So it shows you how young he is and how much experience he's had already. It's crazy. Started off in 2010, so it'd be only about 18, 19. Since losing against Conor McGregor, he's got on a great streak here, beating some really well-known fighters. I remember watching his fight against like Will Chop when he started this streak. Now Will Chop, I think it's Chop or Chope, whatever. 6'4" featherweight, which is kind of rare. Um, I remember watching him against Cole Miller. That was a very impressive win because I've got a lot of respect for Cole Miller, even though he's not. He's a well-known guy, but not a lot of people sort of talk of him in that regard. I think he's a tough guy because I can remember when he were gonna face Conor McGregor, and a lot of people saying how Conor smashed him. But I thought that was a good test for Conor at that time. Beating Cub Swanson and Charles Oliveira, very impressive. I mean, the Charles Oliveira win was a little bit shady because of the neck injury. Jeremy Stephens, still only 29. I mean, this guy's been around for such a long time now. And he's had like a career where it's like ups and downs, peaks and valleys and stuff like that. But he can beat anybody on his day, in my opinion. I just think he's like one of those guys. He can beat somebody. He can fight against the best. Had a split decision loss against Anthony Pettis in the 155 division, lightweight division. Had a good fight with Donald Cerrone. So being at featherweight now, he's got that extra power. Lost against Charles Oliveira, Cub Swanson. He's won 3 or 4 fights at featherweight. Last time out against Dennis Bermudez, that flying knee was fucking amazing. And that was on another Conor McGregor card, if you want to call it that. So against Max Holloway, for me, it's a little bit of a 50-50 fight. In Jeremy can beat anybody on his day, but Max Holloway is just a rising star. So I've got to go with Max Holloway because I've been so impressed with his foot movement. He's young, and that is something. So I'm going to go with Max Holloway in this. But Jeremy Stephens, if he lands a good shot on anybody, he's putting them to sleep. He's a very ferocious guy. Next of all is Damian Maia and Gunnar Nelson. Really like this Gunnar Nelson because he's sort of got that strong, silent type thing that I like in people. When somebody is, and I'm not really talking about, say, someone like Conor McGregor, like a loudmouth person, but I've always thought to myself, the quiet guys are the ones to watch. If somebody's shouting and screaming and acting all crazy, for me, it's all a show, but the people that are quiet, they can smash your skull in just the same, but, in a more brutal way, in my opinion. He's only lost one fight in the UFC, and that was against Rick Story, and Rick Story, he's beat people like Johnny Hendricks and stuff like that, so he's a dangerous guy. Very impressive. I really liked his win against Brandon Thatch last time out at UFC 189. And Brandon's a really big guy, about 6'2", so he's Gunnar can beat the bigger guys, but for me Gunnar is really, it looks like a lightweight in my opinion. You see him sat next to Conor McGregor, and Gunnar is bigger physically, but there's not that much of a difference. And when you're weighing in at, like, say, 169 at the welterweight division, that is really an indication, in my opinion, that you should be a lightweight. I think he would be a fucking animal at lightweight. So, Damien Maia, he's a big guy. He used to fight at 185, beat against people like, Anderson Silva. I think he beat Chael Sonnen as well. Yeah, he did. He's beat people like Nate Quarry, Chael Sonnen. Kendall Grove's a tough guy, Um, yeah, John Fitch. I mean, he completely destroyed John Fitch, and that were, for me, one of the most intriguing ground game fights that I've seen in a long time. I was very looking forward to that because John Fitch is good on the ground, and Damien Maia is so good, so that was a very good win for him. Lost against Jake Shields, split decision. That could have gone any way. That match, I loved that fight, even though most people won't have liked it. I thought it was just really a good match to watch on the ground. Roy McDonald, Roy McDonald's this young buck. But since then, he's gone on a three-fight winning streak. Last of all, winning Neil Magny. He made Neil Magny, and I don't want to say this, but he made Neil Magny look like an amateur. I mean, he just schooled him on the ground. So Gunnar Nelson and Damien Maia, this is another 50-50 fight, like I've been saying. But I'm going to go with Damien Maia. I've seen more of him. I know what he's capable of, but Gunnar Nelson is this sort of young rising guy. I think if he did lose against Damien Maia, I think that would be time for him to go to 155 because sometimes what's the point in wasting, your career or fights at a division where you might not have the best future, So I think he should go to 155 and lose against Damien Maia. I'm going to pick Damien. Next of all is Ronaldo Souza, or people call him Jacare, against Yoel Romero. Yoel Romero, you know, this guy's a little bit crazy. After he wins, he's talking about God and Jesus and going off on like these rampages and saying some crazy shit. Last time, he said some stuff what I don't know if it was took out of context or misquoted, but he said, he didn't come across the best way. He was talking about gay marriage and stuff like that after he just won a fight. Not the best idea. And he did make himself the most understood. Since losing against Rafael, Strikeforce is basically undefeated in the UFC. So I think when the UFC basically got him, I don't know if he was, they just got him because of the contract, similar to what they did in Pride, where they've got to give people fights. I don't know if they had that much of, they seen him as much, if they seen potential in him. But since then he's been on this, really nice streak, knocking people out. And this guy's a wrestler, and he's been knocking people out. I think the fight that really what got my attention to Romero was the Derek Brunson fight because it just showed how freaky athletic he was. And plus, I'm sure it looked like he shit himself in that fight. I'm sure it was that fight where it looked like there was some brown stuff near his shorts. It looked like he just went to the toilet in his pants, which happens. This happens with athletes. It's nothing to be ashamed of. Everybody shits and pisses. It's just one of those things, but you just don't want to do it in the octagon, do you? Uh, so Derek Brunson, yeah. And then against Tim Kennedy, that was a crazy fight. That was fucking insane because, Tim Kennedy's basically sparked Yoel out. And then the bell went, and Yoel was like, having a little chilling session on the stool. And then he come out and knocked fucking Tim Kennedy out. So, that was a bit weird win. Machida, in all honesty, I think Machida might be slowing down a little bit now. And basically, the thing is, it's like, let me just say this, may as well. The thing about Machida is, when he was at 205, he wasn't really getting hit that much because he was so fast. But going against these middleweights where they're just as fast as him now, he's getting hit more. So maybe, he didn't have the chin to start with to take certain shots. And it's not like he's been getting knocked out left, right, and centre. I mean, Luke Rockhold rocked him with an elbow, I think it were, back at ear, and then submitted him. And Romero, KO'd him via elbows. So, it's not like he's been getting knocked out. But when you're against these faster guys who've got power and the speed, you're going to come unstuck at times. So Yoel Romero, dangerous guy. Jacare. Let's have a look at this geezer. 36-year-old. I didn't even know that old. 36. I'm not saying that's old. I don't want people in the mid 30s and 40s wanting to beat me ass, but I didn't think I thought he was in his early 30s. 36. Um, wow, look at that record. Last time out he lost was against Luke Rockhold. I remember the Masasi loss, that KO up kick, that was crazy. So since being in the UFC, he's beat Chris Camozzi twice. Okami doesn't fight in the UFC anymore. Masasi just lost against Raya Hall. So for me, if he can beat Yoel Romero, he probably will deserve a title shot. But if you're going to give a title shot to either him or Jacare, Romero or Jacare right now, based on performances, I'd definitely give it to Yoel Romero. So this for me is the number one contender fight. Another 50-50 where I can't really choose. Um, I'm going to go with Yoel Romero in this one. I just think he's got the power of Jesus, man. He's got the power of Jesus behind him. He's got that crazy thing about him. So I think Yoel's going to win this one. I hope he passes the drug test. What did I just say? That controversial. Chris Weidman against Luke Rockhold. What you call it? Let's see how we're laughing about that Yoel Romero comment. Chris Weidman, Luke Rockhold. Okay, let's look at Chris Weidman. 31-year-old, handsome man he is for a fighter. Luke Rockhold. Okay, so since getting in the UFC, he beat Sakara. That's a good win. He's a tough Italian guy. Tom Lawler, another tough guy. Damien Maia. I remember that fight. I think Chris Weidman had a really bad weight cut for that fight, so it really showed how tough he were. Mark Munoz. I remember that KO. I remember that Chris Weidman's reactions. He hit him with elbow, and then he sort of like instantly grabbed Mark when they were falling down and just followed it up with punches. Such a quick reaction. The Edson Silva fights, wow, they were weird. They were weird fights. I never would have taken anything away from anybody who wins a fight, but they were just weird fights, man. Like Anderson started doing the fucking tango in the cage at UFC 162. I remember shouting at the TV screen, saying, "What the fuck are you doing? You got this young guy in his 20s, because I think he was like 29 at the time, Chris Weidman. Young guy in his 20s in front of you, and you're fucking dancing and leaving your chin out. It was pathetic." And then, Anderson broke his leg fracture on Weidman. But, Chris really showed what he was all about when he dominated Machida. He didn't really dominate Machida. He was actually a really good fight, but it showed how tough he was, that he could go 5 rounds as well. And then I think he mentally broke Vitor before the fight even happened, to be honest with you. I think Vitor's one of those guys, if you can get into his head, the job's nearly done. So Luke Rocco, let's have a look at this guy. 31-year-old, 6'3", so he's taller than Wyman. Impressive record. I mean, look at him. Oh God, he lost in 2007 against Tony Rubalcava. What a name! I've never even heard that surname. Melly on the Mountain. I mean, I've never heard of that division. But since then, so you know what? It shows that he can be KO'd. Chris Wyman's got a bit of a fucking punch on him, hasn't he? He's beat. I think the first fight I watched Rockhold in was actually Keith Jardine. I think it were anyway. I remember really wanting Keith Jardine to win that fight because I felt bad for him when he got cut from UFC. Tim Kennedy, anybody who beats Tim Kennedy has my respect straight away. That guy's a badass. Vitor Belfort. I remember before that fight, everyone said Luke was going to win it, and I remember saying Vitor was going to win him. He did, spinning back, kicked him, and followed it up with brutal punches. But the thing about Luke Rockhold, if anybody beats Michael Bisping, they have my full respect, because people can say what they want about Michael Bisping, all the American MMA fans and even the British fans. He's one tough bastard. He's not. He's Michael Bisping's one of those guys you could knock him the fuck out, but he'd get up straight away and want in a rematch. He's just a tough guy. He's just a typical British guy who's really tough. So if you can beat Michael Bisping and actually stop him, you've got something about you. And the way Luke Rockhold beat Machida, I was so impressed with that. So Chris Weidman and Luke Rockhold, it's hard for me to choose this because Luke Rockhold's got the speed, he's got the foot movement, and but Chris Weidman's just so tough. He's so tough and gritty. I'm going to go with Chris Weidman. I think Chris Weidman will just be relentless. He needs to be careful though because Luke's really good on his back as well. Really good at submissions, and he's got KO power and everything. But I'm going to go with Chris Weidman in this, and I think it's going to be a tough, gritty fight, and I think it may go all the way, personally. And the main event, Jose Aldo versus Conor McGregor. I'll say this: first time I heard of Conor McGregor was from my friend Ryan, and Ryan says you need to watch this interview on MMA Hour with Helwani. So I look at the interview and I'm like, God, who's this guy? And I think I heard of Conor McGregor through the grapevine, because sometimes you hear about these guys in other organisations around Europe, around the world, and I just remember thinking, God, he's a bit cocky, isn't he? That's what I remember thinking. He's a bit cocky, but the thing about Conor is his cockiness doesn't rub me up the wrong way. I'm not like, oh, he's a prick or I don't like him. It's like I actually find it funny. I like it. I like it. You know, just makes me laugh. He's 27-year old. Let's just look at his record. Wow, that's a good record, isn't it? He's lost 2 fights when he was younger, and this is just when he was a kid. Don't forget, he's only 27. So in 2008, when he lost, just still a young lad, young man. Joseph Duffy, so talented, nothing wrong about losing to Joseph Duffy. And submissions, if you look at some of the greats in the past, like Anderson Silva lost quite a few fights in Pride or Japan via submission. So like quite a lot of these good fighters that become great fighters to lose in their early career through submissions. But since then he's got Bella, and Bella has been knocking people out for fun, really, and even predicting the round. Next he'll be predicting the second. So it's crazy. Marcus Brimich, I remember him saying, in that interview that he's going to be fighting against Marcus Brimich in Sweden. And Marcus is a tough guy. He's recently been released by the UFC, unfortunately. But for him to beat Marcus in the first round with a good feather in his cap for his debut anyway. Max Holloway had an injury in that fight, and that's really when he started getting bigger, especially because he was in Boston as well. I remember him talking to Steve Collins, the Irish legendary boxer, before that fight. Diego Brandao won him, Dustin Poirier, and I was saying Dustin is not going to be a walkover. He beat him in under 2 minutes. It was so impressive. Dennis Seaver's a tough guy. Say what you want about him. Very tough guy. Then against Chad Mendes, fair enough. Fair enough. Chad didn't have a full training camp. And he deserves a lot of respect, Chad Mendes, for actually taking that fight as well. It shows that he is a team player, so to speak. So Conor McGregor's record is very impressive. God, what am I doing? Just get on to Jose Aldo. Okay, Jose Aldo is 29. Still a young guy, been around for a long time though. He has got a record of 26 wins and 1 loss. Okay, God, look at that. Look at that record. It's just insane, isn't it? His last loss was a jungle fight in 2005, so he was a young guy then too. Very similar to Conor, losing via submission. His only losses, or loss, but since then he's just been on this impressive record. Well, God, it's amazing record, And the people you could pick out there, Mike Brown were really dangerous fighter in the WEC days, winning him, TKOing him, and that's when he actually won the featherweight championship, and he's sort of had a belt ever since. So he's had a belt, for a good 6 years now. Mike Brown, Ryan Faber, so tough. Manny and Gamboyan, who was just like a really tough Armenian. Mark Hominick, that was a great fight. That remember watching that. Kenny Florian. Kenny Florian is just he's what Kenny Florian one of those guys, man. He just couldn't get his hands on the belt, even though he was just so good. Chad Mendez, I remember watching that fight, just a knee out of nowhere. Anybody that beats Frankie Edgar, wow, instant respect. Chan Sung Jung, really good. That were a pretty impressive fight anyway. Yeah, but I think Chang's get a shoulder come out, so I think that's probably why he got stopped. Ricardo Lamas, that's another good win. And then Chad Mendez, their fight at UFC 179 was so good. So, yeah, one of the, for me, maybe the fight of the year. Maybe the fight, that was just a great fight. Back and forth, so good. So we could go 5 rounds at a, really good pace against, the elite of the elite. People that are overlooking, and it's also a Chelsea fan. I'm a Chelsea fan, so Jose, I love you, mate. I do love you. Um, this is such an hard one to pick because you just got to look at the records at times and things like that. But okay, let me just say this because this video is going on for a long time. Um, Jose Aldo, people overlooking him are out of their fucking mind, in my opinion. He's beat the best of the best. He's still young. It's not like he's 40 or 35 or, like coming out of his prime years or anything like that. He's still young. Conor McGregor, only like a year and a half younger than Aldo, let's remember that. Nowhere near the experience Jose's got. But he's bigger. He's bigger. And it seems like Conor's like one of these first breed of fighters coming through with this sort of different movement of strikes, the way they set up the strikes, um, the way they use the other person's movement against them to set up a knockout punch. It's just amazing if you analyze it in a certain way and you look at it. It's not like they're stood up upright and just throwing crazy kicks and punches. The way he sets the punches up, it's the first time I've sort of seen that inside of MMA. I've seen it for many years in kickboxing, but it's the first time I've seen that in MMA. Really, you know. Um, I'm gonna go. Okay, I class Jose as the favourite because he's the champion and he's beat all these guys. He's a favourite in the book. He should be a favourite in the bookmakers' eyes, in my opinion. But I'm going to choose Conor McGregor. And the reason why I'm choosing Conor McGregor, I'm not jumping on anybody's bandwagon. I don't ever do that. Um, but it just seems to me that this is meant to happen. There's sometimes things that in sports or life, sometimes you've got to sit back and just say, this is meant to happen. It just seems like it's meant to happen. It seems like he's come around at this time for this to happen, and it seems he will move to lightweight if he does win. Um, I'm going to go with Conor McGregor. It just seems it's meant to happen. That's what I'm going to say. I class Jose as the favourite, so I'm not. I don't mean to contradict myself here. I class Jose as the favourite just because of history, but I think Conor will win because it's meant to happen. A bit of a weird prediction that, but I think some people understand what I mean. Hopefully, if you don't, sorry. So that's my predictions anyway. I think I might do some predictions for the Frankie Edgar Chad Mendes fight. Might do. But yeah, thanks for watching or listening. Really appreciate it. And if you can, leave your predictions below. I'd like to see what you say. So thank you very much. And enjoy the fights. And have a good Christmas. Take care.